I put myself near you with these words, as if we hadn't woken up together in bed this morning. Your hand on mine, and with a gentle squeeze, we agreed on a half hour more of such ease. Better to ask a wave where it came from before the ocean would show its heave than to trace the source of our handhold. There is distance so vast it can't be seen except in small versions of itself, which the kindness of nature permits. Let's take a comfortable seat. Leaving your hands face up on your lap if that's comfortable. Lengthening the back just a little bit. Lengthening the neck. And then softening the shoulders. As I said last week, feeling them fall once and then letting them fall again. Softening muscles of the face, the jaw, even in the neck. Softening the belly. Feeling that hum of bees we talked about last week, right in your forehead. Feeling that presence. And then the breath just naturally deepens in all that softness. There's nothing constricting it. 3 counts in. Try to count out to 4 to release everything. Four counts in. See if you can get to 5, counting out. Now we're in it again. Everything quiet. Enormous ceilings like in a cathedral. I like to quote the song, My Funny Valentine, you make me smile from my heart, considering the time of year. Just put that smile in your heart. A friend sent me a photograph of him with a puppy emerging out of his jacket, right where the heart is. I like to think of it that way, becoming stray like that. If you remember last week, stepping out of the porch, away from our stories, just straying from them a little bit. For a flash, you're just living the life of a Buddha. Peace, joy, and freedom, not grasping or afraid of anything. Turning your breathing to 3 counts in, 4 counts out. Just giving some space around that moment of strayness. Married for life. I put myself near you with these words, as if we hadn't woken up together in bed this morning. Your hand on mine, and with a gentle squeeze, we agreed on a half hour more of such ease. Better to ask a wave where it came from, before the ocean would show its heave, than to trace the source of our handhold. There is distance so vast, it can't be seen, except in small versions of itself, which the kindness of nature permits. This poem is by Judith Bowles. She's an author from Washington, D.C. She's published 2 books of poetry. And she's a contemporary of Myra Scleroux, a poet that we talked about last semester. She's also a founder of the Surrey Street group, which is a group of poets who first gathered in her home on Surrey Street in Friendship Heights back in 2010 and who are still meeting. And I believe that a large number of those poets have gone on to publish books themselves. So this poem speaks of small versions of enormity. There's a distance so vast it can't be seen except in small versions of itself, which the kindness of nature permits. You see, the poem takes 3 leaps. It starts with this moment in bed with the handhold, and then it recognizes something beyond the handhold, not only around it, but which preceded their lives together and which heaves onward beyond their lives. Better to ask a wave where it came from than to trace the source of our handhold. And so, what the poet acknowledges here at the end in this little poem of 3 leaps is that the best we can do is to look deeply into the small versions of that enormity, which the kindness of nature permits. Judy's a friend of mine, and she once told me a story about a couple who had a very sick child. They were friends of the family, and one night in conversation, they shared with her that the only thing they did for themselves beyond the care of this child was now and then to go see opera in New York. And Judy asked why, and they told her that opera was the only thing that seemed big enough to hold it. And that is certainly one side of the expression of art, is to take something that is unimaginable, to take something that's ungraspable, and then to create a cathedral around it. And by creating that space of the cathedral, you make it somehow bearable. That's one side of grief. This poem looks at the other side. It takes the unimaginable, indescribable, beyond names and forms of that Shakti or Chi or whatever you want to call it, that's passing through them, and focuses on one small expression at a time. And within that one small expression, you have the same effect. You can see the infinite. I also love that she says, which nature kindly permits us. So why kindness? It could just be a completely impassive expression of nature, a naturalistic, in other words, expression of nature. But there is the word kindness there. We can't deny that that must mean something, that it suggests an intention of some sort. It suggests a consciousness that we partake of and which we share, which I feel so deeply in this poem. And what that consciousness shares with us is the chance to know each other completely. And by knowing each other completely, to know ourselves. Beyond the shields and mirrors we project or put up at the beginning of a relationship, on into its depths, into long life, until finally there are no shields and mirrors available to us, and it's just the experience of the other for all that's possible. And it relates to me to radical acceptance. The kindness of nature is to show us the experience of being alive and to say yes to all of it. The third thing about this poem I wanted to share is that it has some connection to me to the Brahma Viharas, which are the 4 houses of love. The Brahma Viharas are mostly talked about in the first expression of them, which is called metta, loving kindness. But there's another, karuna, which is compassion. And then a third, mudita, which is feeling joy at the success and advancement of others without it having anything to do with you, mudita. And the fourth is upekkha, which is letting go. Loving kindness is kind of putting out a hand. It precedes the handhold, if you know what I mean. Loving kindness is just the desire to wish well of another, and you put out your hand. Karuna, compassion, is different from loving kindness because it's not only the recognition of the suffering of the other, but also a desire to relieve their suffering. And then mudita is the clasp. Your hand has reached the other and you're clasping it and you're just about to let go, because mudita is not about you at all. It's not about anything that you're doing or anything that you're efforting, no wish, no desire to relieve the suffering, just letting go and watching and feeling joy at their advancement. So mudita is the moment of the beginning of letting go. And then upekkha is the way we love each other by letting them be who they are without getting in their way, by doing what Italo Calvino said, which is giving them space. So in the second part of the meditation, I want to do a little mudita practice. We've all done metta practices, but I want to do a mudita practice in honor of Judith's poem. So this is Married for Life by Judith Bowles. One more time. I put myself near you with these words, as if we hadn't woken up together in bed this morning, your hand on mine, and with a gentle squeeze we agreed on a half hour more of such ease. Better to ask a wave where it came from, before the ocean would show its heave, than to trace the source of our handhold. There is distance so vast it can't be seen except in small versions of itself, which the kindness of nature permits. Going back into that comfortable seat, feet flat on the floor. Hands just relaxed on your laps. Poets writing from a distance, remembering that handhold in the morning. They've already stepped back. They've already let go to a certain extent. So in the mudita practice, think about someone very close to you. Something that happened that brought them clear joy. And stepping back in that doing nothing place. Just tell them, I celebrate your joy. I celebrate your advancement. I celebrate your continued well-being. Someone you adore, someone you cherish. First time I actually hit the ball in Little League, my dad, who was a very patient coach to his clumsy son, jumped so high against the fence that he hooked his belt on it and was dangling there. That's mudita. Just to do a little shortened version of this now. Choose a neutral person. Someone you work beside. Maybe you've never even had a conversation with them. I think of the mail carrier who has to walk up steps to deliver maybe a few pieces of junk mail to my home. I've never had a chance to have a conversation with them. Taking a step back and just imagining that person in their moment of advancement, birth of a child, even just a day off. I celebrate your joy. I celebrate your advancement. I celebrate your well-being. The third would be a difficult person, maybe someone who you locked horns with in traffic or in a meeting. Really see into a moment of accomplishment for them, whether observed or not observed, even if you imagine it. And really mean it. I celebrate your joy. I celebrate your advancement. I celebrate your well-being. And last, I put this last, although in most of these practices, this part comes first. But in Mudita, it's ourselves who are sometimes the most difficult to celebrate. Just taking that seat of the witness who watches all of this, thinking about yourself. I celebrate your joy. I celebrate your success. I celebrate your advancement. I celebrate your well-being. Holding that 4 count in, 5 count out breath. Remembering your posture. And all that softness. And if your mind is wandering, just remember that recognizing it is the whole point of the meditation. Remembering that your mind is wandering is making you a good meditator, not the opposite. As you come back to your regular breathing, hold that smile on your heart. That's a true Valentine. Married for Life by Judith Bowles. I put myself near you with these words, as if we hadn't woken up together in bed this morning. Your hand on mine, and with a gentle squeeze, we agreed on a half hour more of such ease. Better to ask a wave where it came from before the ocean would show its heave than to trace the source of our handhold. There is distance so vast it can't be seen except in small versions of itself, which the kindness of nature permits. Thank you all.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, David. Darling David, I miss you.
I miss you too. Thank you, Grace. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
You all.
Have a good day.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, David.
Judith Bowles. Thank you, Judy.
Thank you, David. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Susan.
So good to see you.
See you. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.